Chapter 1: The Power of Critical Thinking. In the labyrinth of modern existence, have you ever marveled at those rare individuals who navigate life's most Byzantine challenges with seemingly effortless grace? You've pondered how they consistently arrive at judicious decisions, unravel intricate conundrums, or articulate complex ideas with remarkable lucidity. The wellspring of their success isn't some innate gift or serendipitous fortune. Rather, it lies in a faculty that each of us can cultivate and refine: critical thinking. Critical thinking stands as the cornerstone of personal and professional evolution, a transformative capability that unlocks our latent potential and empowers us to flourish in an increasingly intricate world. But what precisely is critical thinking, and why has it become so indispensable in our frenetic, information-saturated society? Defining critical thinking. At its essence, critical thinking is a disciplined approach to processing information and forming judgments. It's not, as some might erroneously surmise, about being disputatious or dismissive of others' ideas. Rather, it's a methodical way of analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing information to arrive at well-reasoned conclusions and decisions. Critical thinking empowers us to step back from our immediate reactions, examine situations with objectivity, and consider multiple perspectives and potential outcomes. It's akin to developing a mental Swiss Army knife, equipped with tools for dissecting complex issues, scrutinizing evidence, and constructing robust arguments. Imagine you're confronted with a pivotal decision at work or a personal quandary that seems to have no clear resolution. A critical thinker doesn't rush to judgment or rely solely on gut instinct. Instead, they embark on a journey of intellectual exploration. They begin by posing probing questions, gathering relevant information from diverse sources, and meticulously assessing the reliability and relevance of that information. Consider, for instance, a city council debating whether to implement a congestion charge in the city center. A critical thinker on the council wouldn't simply rely on their preconceived notions about traffic management. They would delve into traffic flow data, environmental impact assessments, economic projections, and case studies from other cities. They would consult with urban planners, economists, and local business owners. They would consider not just the immediate effects on traffic, but also the long-term implications for air quality, local businesses, and social equity. Throughout this process, critical thinkers test ideas against established criteria and standards, recognizing and evaluating assumptions, implications, and potential consequences. They communicate effectively with others, fostering a collaborative environment where diverse perspectives can contribute to finding solutions to even the most complex problems. The transformative impact on personal and professional life. The impact of mastering critical thinking extends far beyond the confines of a classroom or workplace. In our personal lives, it serves as a compass, guiding us through the myriad choices we face daily. By honing our critical thinking skills, we can forge stronger, more meaningful relationships. We metamorphose into more attentive listeners, more empathetic partners, and more understanding friends. We develop the capacity to see beyond our own perspectives, appreciating the nuances of different viewpoints and finding common ground even in the face of profound disagreement. Consider the case of Emma, a young professional navigating the complexities of modern relationships. When faced with recurring conflicts with her partner, Emma employed critical thinking to analyze the situation objectively. Instead of reacting emotionally, she examined the patterns in their disagreements, considered her partner's perspective, and researched effective communication strategies. This approach led to a breakthrough in their relationship, as Emma was able to identify the root causes of their conflicts and propose constructive solutions. Critical thinking also empowers us to make better decisions that align with our values and long-term aspirations. Whether we're managing our finances, choosing a career path, or deciding on a place to live, critical thinking provides the framework to weigh our options carefully, consider potential outcomes, and make choices that truly serve our best interests. In the professional realm, the value of critical thinking cannot be overstated. In today's rapidly evolving job market, employers across all industries are increasingly seeking individuals who can think critically and independently. It's the skill that distinguishes leaders and innovators from those who simply follow instructions. A critical thinker can analyze market trends, anticipate challenges, and devise innovative solutions. They can communicate complex ideas with clarity and persuasion, lead teams more effectively by considering diverse perspectives, and adapt quickly to changing environments and new technologies. Consider the story of James, a mid-level manager at a venerable British manufacturing firm. When his company faced a crisis due to emerging competition from overseas, many of his colleagues panicked, advocating for hasty decisions based on fear. James, however, approached the situation with a critical thinking mindset. He took the time to gather comprehensive data, consulted with experts both within and outside the company, and carefully analyzed potential strategies. By thinking critically, James was able to propose an innovative solution that not only navigated the company through the crisis but also opened up new growth opportunities. He identified a niche market that valued the company's traditional craftsmanship, while also proposing modernization of certain processes to improve efficiency. James's ability to think critically under pressure not only saved jobs but also positioned him as a valuable leader within the organization, ultimately leading to his promotion to a senior executive role. Dispelling myths about critical thinking. Despite its immense value, critical thinking is often misunderstood, shrouded in a fog of misconceptions that obscure its true nature and accessibility. Let us, then, dispel these myths with the clear light of reason. Some believe critical thinking is an innate talent, a gift bestowed upon a lucky few at birth. This couldn't be further from the truth. Critical thinking is a skill that can be developed and honed over time, much like a muscle that grows stronger with regular exercise. It's not about possessing a superior intellect, but about cultivating a particular approach to thinking and problem-solving. Others mistakenly think that critical thinking is the exclusive province of academics or intellectuals, confined to the ivory towers of universities. In reality, critical thinking is a practical skill that's valuable in all aspects of life, from deciding what to prepare for dinner to making major life choices. It's as useful to a plumber diagnosing a complex pipe system as it is to a philosopher pondering the nature of existence. Another common misconception is that critical thinking means being critical of everything and everyone, a sort of perpetual skepticism that borders on cynicism. True critical thinking, however, involves fair-minded evaluation and a willingness to consider multiple perspectives. It's not about tearing down ideas, but about building a more comprehensive understanding of the world around us. A critical thinker is as open to changing their own mind as they are to questioning others' assertions. Some people believe that critical thinking is all about cold, hard logic, leaving no room for emotion or intuition. While logical analysis is certainly a key component of critical thinking, effective critical thinkers also recognize the value of emotional intelligence. They understand that emotions can provide valuable insights and that intuition, when balanced with rational analysis, can lead to more holistic decision-making. For instance, consider a judge presiding over a complex case. While they must rigorously apply the law and logically analyze the evidence presented, an effective judge also uses their emotional intelligence to assess the credibility of witnesses and to understand the human elements of the case. This balanced approach, combining critical thinking with emotional awareness, leads to more just and nuanced decisions, setting the stage for intellectual growth. As we embark on this journey to enhance your critical thinking skills, you'll discover that it's not just about changing how you think, it's about transforming your entire approach to life. You'll learn to question assumptions, challenge your own biases, and approach problems with creativity and open-mindedness. This book will be your guide through this transformation, providing you with practical tools, insightful exercises, and valuable knowledge to help you develop a critical thinking mindset. We'll explore the foundations of critical thinking, delving into the intricacies of logical reasoning and uncovering the hidden biases that can cloud our judgment. You'll learn powerful techniques for problem-solving, decision-making, and effective communication. But before we dive into these topics, we must first turn our attention inward. To truly master critical thinking, we must first understand the complex landscape of our minds. As we draw this introductory chapter to a close, I invite you to pause and reflect. Are you prepared to challenge your assumptions, expand your perspective, and unlock your full potential? The journey ahead may not always be smooth sailing. There will be moments of discomfort as you confront long-held beliefs and push the boundaries of your thinking. But remember, it's in these moments of challenge that true growth occurs. The rewards of developing your critical thinking skills are immeasurable. You'll find yourself making better decisions, solving problems more effectively, and navigating the complexities of both your personal and professional life with greater confidence and clarity. You'll become a more engaged citizen, better equipped to participate in the important discussions shaping our world. Most importantly, you'll develop a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you, opening up new possibilities for growth, achievement, and fulfillment. In the next chapter, we'll begin by exploring the fascinating world of your thought patterns, the first step in transforming your mindset for ultimate personal growth. We'll delve into the intricate workings of your mind, uncovering the hidden influences that shape your thinking and learning how to harness the full power of your cognitive abilities. Remember, critical thinking is not a destination, but a lifelong journey of growth and discovery. Each chapter in this book will build upon the last, providing you with a comprehensive toolkit for mastering the art of critical thinking. So, let us embark on this exhilarating journey together and unlock the true power of your mind. The path to clearer thinking, better decision-making, and a more fulfilling life awaits. Are you ready to take the first step into this new realm of intellectual adventure? Chapter 2: Mapping the Landscape of Your Mind. As we embark upon this next stage of our journey into critical thinking, imagine yourself as an intrepid explorer, standing at the threshold of a vast, uncharted territory. This terra incognita is none other than the landscape of your own mind, a realm as complex and mysterious as any undiscovered continent. In this chapter, we shall equip ourselves with the tools and techniques necessary to map this internal terrain, for it is only by understanding the contours of our own thought patterns that we can truly begin to think critically. The journey of self-awareness. Our expedition begins with the cultivation of self-awareness, the cornerstone of critical thinking and personal growth. Self-awareness is akin to having a precise and detailed map of your internal landscape. It allows you to navigate the treacherous ravines of bias, scale the peaks of insight, and traverse the fertile valleys of creativity with greater ease and confidence. But what exactly is self-awareness in the context of critical thinking? It's the ability to observe your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors as if you were an impartial spectator. This skill allows you to recognize patterns in your thinking, identify your strengths and weaknesses, and understand how your experiences and beliefs shape your perceptions of the world. Consider the case of Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman to receive a medical degree in the United States. Born in Bristol, Blackwell faced enormous societal and institutional barriers in her pursuit of a medical education. Her journey required not only determination but also a profound level of self-awareness. She had to constantly examine her own motivations, confront her doubts and fears, and challenge the internalized biases she had absorbed from her society. This self-awareness allowed her to persevere in the face of rejection and ridicule, ultimately paving the way for generations of women in medicine. Developing self-awareness is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of introspection and reflection. It requires us to cultivate a sense of curiosity about our own minds, to ask ourselves probing questions, and to be willing to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. Uncovering hidden biases and assumptions. As we delve deeper into the landscape of our minds, we inevitably encounter hidden biases and assumptions, the unseen forces that shape our perceptions and decisions. These biases are like invisible currents in a river, subtly influencing the direction of our thoughts without our conscious awareness. Cognitive biases are systematic errors in thinking that can lead to irrational judgments and decisions. They're not character flaws or signs of low intelligence. In fact, they're a natural result of our brain's attempt to simplify information processing. These mental shortcuts, or heuristics, often serve us well in everyday situations. But in complex scenarios requiring critical thinking, they can lead us astray. One of the most pervasive biases is confirmation bias, our tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. It's why we're quick to accept evidence that supports our views and scrutinize or dismiss evidence that contradicts them. For instance, consider a British politician firmly convinced that stricter immigration policies will boost the economy. They might eagerly share reports showing job losses in areas with high immigration, while dismissing or downplaying studies that demonstrate the economic benefits of immigration. This confirmation bias can lead to a skewed understanding of a complex issue, potentially resulting in policy decisions that don't address the full reality of the situation. Another common bias is the anchoring effect, where we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter when making decisions. This is why the initial price of a house can significantly influence negotiations, even if that price is arbitrary. Estate agents often use this bias to their advantage by initially listing a property at a higher price, knowing that subsequent negotiations will be anchored to this initial figure. The availability heuristic is yet another bias, causing us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily remembered or imagined. This is why people often fear air travel more than car journeys, despite the latter being statistically more dangerous. The vivid and widely reported nature of plane crashes makes them more available to our minds, skewing our perception of risk. Recognizing these biases in ourselves can be challenging, but it's a crucial step in developing critical thinking skills. By acknowledging our biases, we can begin to counteract their influence on our decision-making and problem-solving processes. Techniques for mindfulness and reflective journaling. Having recognized the importance of self-awareness and the challenge of hidden biases, how can we practically cultivate a deeper understanding of our own minds? Two powerful techniques stand out: mindfulness and reflective journaling. Mindfulness, with its roots in ancient Buddhist practices, has gained significant traction in recent years as a tool for improving mental health and cognitive function. In the context of critical thinking, mindfulness serves as a powerful lens through which we can observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. To practice mindfulness, one might start with a simple breathing exercise. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and focus your attention on your breath. As you breathe in and out, notice the sensations in your body. When thoughts arise, as they inevitably will, simply acknowledge them and gently return your focus to your breath. This practice, done regularly, can dramatically increase your ability to notice your thoughts and emotions as they occur, rather than being unconsciously driven by them. Consider the experience of Sir Richard Branson, founder of the Virgin Group. Branson has spoken publicly about his use of mindfulness techniques to manage the stress of running a global business empire. By taking time each day to practice mindfulness, he reports being able to approach complex business decisions with greater clarity and creativity. Reflective journaling, on the other hand, provides a tangible record of our inner world. By writing down our thoughts, experiences, and reactions, we create a mirror that reflects our mental patterns back to us. Over time, this record can reveal insights about our decision-making processes, emotional responses, and underlying beliefs. An effective approach to reflective journaling is the what, so what, now what method. At the end of each day, write down 1. What? Describe a significant event or decision from your day. 2. So what? Reflect on why this event was significant. How did it make you feel? What does it reveal about your values or beliefs? 3. Now what? Consider how you might apply this insight in the future. What would you do differently next time? For example, imagine you're a teacher who had a challenging interaction with a student. In your journal, you might describe the interaction, what, reflect on your emotional response and the assumptions you made about the student's behavior, so what, and then consider how you might approach similar situations differently in the future, now what? Embracing the discomfort of growth. As we conclude this chapter, it's important to acknowledge that the journey of self-discovery and critical thinking is not always comfortable. Confronting our own biases, questioning long-held beliefs, and examining our thought patterns can be challenging and even unsettling. However, it's precisely in this discomfort that true growth occurs. Just as a muscle must be stressed to grow stronger, our minds must grapple with challenging ideas and self-reflection to develop greater critical thinking capacity. Remember the words of the great British philosopher Bertrand Russell: "The fundamental cause of trouble in the world today is that the stupid are cocksure while the intelligent are full of doubt." As we develop our critical thinking skills, we may find ourselves less certain about things we once took for granted. This is not a weakness, but a sign of intellectual maturity and growth. As we move forward in our exploration of critical thinking, carry with you the tools of self-awareness, bias recognition, mindfulness, and reflective practice. These will serve as your compass and map as we delve deeper into the techniques of logical reasoning, problem-solving, and decision-making in the chapters to come. In our next chapter, we will build upon this foundation of self-awareness to explore the fundamental tools of critical thinking. We'll delve into the principles of logic, evidence evaluation, and the development of a truly critical mindset. Are you ready to sharpen your intellectual toolkit and take the next step in your critical thinking journey? Chapter 3: Building Your Critical Thinking Toolkit. Having mapped the intricate terrain of your mind, we now turn our attention to equipping ourselves with the essential implements of critical thinking. Much like a master craftsman carefully selects and hones their tools, we too must develop and refine our cognitive instruments. In this chapter, we shall explore the fundamental components of the critical thinker's toolkit: logical reasoning, evidence-based thinking, and the cultivation of a critical thinking mindset. The foundations of logical reasoning. At the heart of critical thinking lies the art of logical reasoning. It is the scaffold upon which we construct sound arguments, dismantle faulty ones, and navigate the complex labyrinth of ideas we encounter daily. But what exactly is logical reasoning, and how can we harness its power? Logical reasoning is the process of drawing conclusions based on evidence and sound argumentation. It involves identifying premises, the information or assumptions we start with, and following them through to their logical conclusions. This might sound abstract, but it's something we do every day, often without realizing it. Consider a simple syllogism. 1. All mammals are warm-blooded. 2. Whales are mammals. 3. Therefore, whales are warm-blooded. This is a basic form of deductive reasoning, where if the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. However, logical reasoning encompasses more than just deduction. It also includes inductive reasoning, drawing general conclusions from specific observations, and abductive reasoning, inferring the most likely explanation from an incomplete set of observations. For instance, the process by which Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's famous detective, Sherlock Holmes, solves his cases is often a masterful display of abductive reasoning. Holmes observes a set of clues and infers the most probable explanation, even when he doesn't have all the information. This type of reasoning is crucial in fields ranging from scientific research to medical diagnosis. To strengthen your logical reasoning skills, practice identifying the structure of arguments you encounter. What are the premises? What is the conclusion? Is the reasoning deductive, inductive, or abductive? By breaking down arguments in this way, you'll become more adept at constructing your own robust arguments and spotting flaws in others. Cultivating evidence-based thinking. While logical reasoning provides the structure for our thoughts, evidence-based thinking furnishes the substance. It is the commitment to basing our conclusions on verifiable facts and reliable data rather than personal beliefs, emotions, or anecdotes. In an age where we're bombarded with information from countless sources, the ability to evaluate evidence critically is more crucial than ever. But how do we distinguish reliable evidence from misinformation or pseudoscience? First, consider the source of the information. Is it a peer-reviewed scientific journal, a reputable news outlet, or an anonymous blog post? While no source is infallible, some are certainly more reliable than others. Next, look at the methodology behind the evidence. If it's a scientific study, was it well designed? Was the sample size adequate? Were appropriate controls used? If it's a survey, was it conducted impartially, or might there be bias in the questions or sample selection? Consider the case of the MMR vaccine controversy in the UK. In 1998, a study published in The Lancet suggested a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. This led to a significant drop in vaccination rates and subsequent outbreaks of measles. However, further investigation revealed serious flaws in the study's methodology, and it was eventually retracted. This case illustrates the importance of critically evaluating evidence, even when it comes from seemingly reputable sources. Developing evidence-based thinking also involves being willing to change your mind when presented with new, compelling information. This can be challenging, as we all have a tendency to cling to our existing beliefs. However, the ability to update our views in light of new evidence is a hallmark of true critical thinking. Developing a critical thinking mindset. The tools of logical reasoning and evidence-based thinking are powerful, but they're only as effective as the mindset of the person wielding them. Developing a critical thinking mindset involves cultivating several key attitudes: curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility. Curiosity is the engine that drives critical thinking. It's the desire to understand, to dig deeper, to ask why and how. Cultivate your curiosity by asking questions, even about things you think you already understand. As the great British physicist Isaac Newton said, "I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, and diverting myself in now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." Open-mindedness is the willingness to consider new ideas and perspectives, even, or especially, when they challenge our existing beliefs. This doesn't mean accepting every new idea uncritically, but rather being willing to give fair consideration to views different from our own. For example, consider the British philosopher John Stuart Mill, who deliberately sought out opposing viewpoints to challenge and refine his own thinking. In his autobiography, Mill wrote, "I never presumed that my conclusions were certain. I knew that I was seeking, not asserting, truth." This openness to new ideas and willingness to question his own beliefs was crucial to Mill's intellectual development and his contributions to philosophy and political theory. Intellectual humility is the recognition that our knowledge is always incomplete and that we can learn from others, even, or especially, when we disagree with them. It's the opposite of intellectual arrogance or dogmatism. Intellectual humility allows us to say, "I don't know," or "I was wrong," phrases that are often seen as admissions of weakness but are actually signs of intellectual strength and maturity. Essential attitudes: curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility. These attitudes, curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility, form the foundation of what we might call a critical thinking mindset. This mindset is characterized by a willingness to question assumptions, including your own, a healthy skepticism towards claims that lack evidence, and a commitment to ongoing learning and growth. Developing this mindset isn't always easy. It requires us to step out of our comfort zones, confront our own biases, and sometimes admit that we were wrong. But the rewards are immense. With a critical thinking mindset, you'll be better equipped to navigate complex issues, make well-informed decisions, and engage meaningfully with diverse perspectives. Consider the example of Dame Stephanie Steve Shirley, a British information technology pioneer. Born in Germany, she arrived in Britain as a child refugee from the Nazis. Despite facing significant barriers as a woman in a male-dominated field, Shirley founded a successful software company in the 1960s. Her curiosity about the potential of computers, her open-mindedness to new ways of working, including pioneering work-from-home arrangements for women with children, and her intellectual humility in continuously learning and adapting to rapid technological changes were key to her success. Shirley's story illustrates how a critical thinking mindset can drive innovation and overcome societal barriers. As we conclude this chapter, you should have a solid grasp of the fundamental tools of critical thinking, logical reasoning, and evidence-based thinking. You understand the importance of cultivating a critical thinking mindset characterized by curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility. But knowing these principles is just the first step. To truly master critical thinking, we must learn to apply these skills in the face of one of the greatest challenges to clear thinking, our own cognitive biases. In the next chapter, we'll delve into the fascinating world of cognitive biases, exploring how they influence our thinking and learning powerful strategies to overcome them. Are you ready to confront these hidden influencers and take your critical thinking skills to the next level? Chapter 4: Navigating the Maze of Cognitive Biases. Imagine yourself as an intrepid explorer, venturing into a labyrinth of mirrors. Each reflection you encounter isn't a true representation of reality, but a subtle distortion. These distortions are akin to the cognitive biases that shape our perceptions, judgments, and decisions, often without our conscious awareness. In this chapter, we shall illuminate the hidden corners of this maze, exposing the most pervasive cognitive biases and equipping you with the tools to navigate them successfully. Understanding common cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are systematic errors in thinking that affect our judgments and decision-making. They're not character flaws or signs of low intelligence. In fact, they're a natural result of our brain's attempt to simplify information processing. These mental shortcuts, or heuristics, often serve us well in everyday situations. But in complex scenarios requiring critical thinking, they can lead us astray. The study of cognitive biases is a relatively young field, pioneered by Israeli psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in the 1970s. Their work, which eventually earned Kahneman a Nobel Prize in economics, revolutionized our understanding of human decision-making and laid the groundwork for the field of behavioral economics. Let's examine some of the most common cognitive biases. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is our tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. It's a bit like looking for your lost keys only in the places where you expect them to be, rather than where you've actually been. Consider the case of the Yorkshire Ripper investigation in the late 1970s. The police became convinced that the killer was from Sunderland due to a hoax tape recording. This belief led them to discount crucial evidence that didn't fit this theory, including information about the actual killer, Peter Sutcliffe, who was interviewed 9 times but released each time. This tragic example illustrates how confirmation bias can have severe real-world consequences. But confirmation bias isn't limited to criminal investigations. It permeates our daily lives, from the news sources we choose to the way we interpret scientific studies. For instance, during the Brexit referendum, many people on both sides of the debate tended to seek out information that confirmed their existing views, creating echo chambers that reinforced rather than challenged their beliefs. To combat confirmation bias, we must actively seek out information that contradicts our existing beliefs. This doesn't mean we should abandon our convictions at the first sign of contradictory evidence, but rather that we should approach our beliefs with a spirit of critical inquiry, always being open to new information and perspectives. The anchoring effect. The anchoring effect occurs when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter when making decisions. This initial anchor influences our subsequent judgments, even if it's not relevant or accurate. For instance, in a famous study by Tversky and Kahneman, participants were asked to estimate the percentage of African countries in the United Nations. Before answering, they spun a wheel that landed on either 10 or 65. Those who saw 10 guessed an average of 25%, while those who saw 65 guessed 45%. The arbitrary number from the wheel anchored their estimates. The anchoring effect has profound implications in many areas of life. In business negotiations, for example, the party that makes the first offer often gains an advantage by setting the anchor point around which the negotiation revolves. Estate agents often use this effect by initially listing a property at a higher price, knowing that subsequent negotiations will be anchored to this initial figure. Even judges and legal professionals, who are trained to be objective, are not immune to the anchoring effect. Studies have shown that the sentences demanded by prosecutors can serve as anchors, influencing the final sentences handed down by judges. To mitigate the anchoring effect, it's crucial to consciously consider multiple reference points and to question the relevance and accuracy of any initial figures or ideas we encounter. Availability heuristic. The availability heuristic leads us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily remembered or imagined. This is why people often fear plane crashes more than car accidents, despite the latter being statistically more dangerous. In the UK, following the extensive media coverage of the murder of Sarah Everard in 2021, there was a significant increase in fear and anxiety about women's safety when walking alone at night. While the event was tragic and highlighted important issues, statistically, such incidents are rare. The availability heuristic, fueled by media coverage, led to an overestimation of the likelihood of similar events occurring. The availability heuristic can have far-reaching consequences in public policy and personal decision-making. For example, in the aftermath of the July 7 London bombings in 2005, many people avoided using the underground, opting instead for what they perceived as safer modes of transport. This perception was driven by the availability heuristic rather than an accurate assessment of risk. In the realm of public health, the availability heuristic can influence vaccination rates. When reports of rare vaccine side effects receive extensive media coverage, they become more available in people's minds, potentially leading to an overestimation of the risks associated with vaccination compared to the risks of the diseases they prevent. To counter the availability heuristic, we must strive to base our risk assessments on statistical evidence rather than easily recalled anecdotes or vivid media reports. This requires a conscious effort to seek out and consider comprehensive, reliable data. Dunning-Kruger effect. Named after psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, this bias refers to the tendency for people with limited knowledge or expertise in a given domain to overestimate their own competence. Conversely, experts often underestimate their abilities, assuming that others have the same level of understanding. This bias is often observed in political discussions, where individuals with limited understanding of complex issues may express the most confident opinions. It's a reminder of the importance of intellectual humility, as discussed in our previous chapter. The Dunning-Kruger effect has implications far beyond individual overconfidence. In organizational settings, it can lead to poor decision-making when those with limited expertise are the most vocal or influential. In education, it can hinder learning if students overestimate their understanding and fail to recognize areas where they need improvement. Interestingly, the Dunning-Kruger effect also helps explain why genuine experts often express more uncertainty than novices. As we gain knowledge in a field, we become more aware of its complexities and the limits of our understanding. This increased awareness of what we don't know can lead to more cautious and nuanced opinions. To combat the Dunning-Kruger effect, we must cultivate intellectual humility and a growth mindset. This involves being open to feedback, actively seeking out opportunities to learn, and being willing to acknowledge the limits of our knowledge and expertise. Strategies for recognizing and counteracting biases. Now that we've identified some common cognitive biases, how can we recognize and counteract them in our own thinking? 1. Cultivate self-awareness. The first step in overcoming cognitive biases is to be aware of their existence. By understanding these biases, we can start to recognize when they might be influencing our thinking. Practice mindfulness and self-reflection, as discussed in Chapter 2, to become more attuned to your thought processes. Self-awareness isn't just about recognizing biases in the moment, it's also about understanding our own tendencies and triggers. For instance, you might notice that you're particularly susceptible to the availability heuristic when it comes to health-related information, or that you tend to fall prey to confirmation bias when discussing political issues. One effective technique for developing this self-awareness is to keep a bias journal. Each day, reflect on a decision you made or an opinion you formed, and consider which biases might have influenced your thinking. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns in your cognitive processes, allowing you to preemptively guard against your most common biases. 2. Seek out diverse perspectives. To combat confirmation bias, actively seek out information and viewpoints that contradict your existing beliefs. If you lean left politically, read respected right-wing publications, and vice versa. If you're a scientist, engage with literature in the humanities. The goal isn't to change your mind on every issue, but to understand different viewpoints and the reasoning behind them. This strategy goes beyond just reading diverse sources. Engage in conversations with people who hold different views, join interdisciplinary projects, or participate in debates where you argue for positions you disagree with. These experiences can help you develop cognitive flexibility and a more nuanced understanding of complex issues. Consider the example of British politician Rory Stewart, who, as part of his campaign for the Conservative Party leadership in 2019, embarked on a series of walks across the UK to engage with people from all walks of life. This approach allowed him to gain diverse perspectives on the issues facing the country, challenging his own preconceptions and broadening his understanding. 3. Use the steel man technique. Instead of attacking a weak or exaggerated version of an opposing argument, known as a straw man, try to construct the strongest possible version of the opposing view. This steel man technique helps counteract our natural tendency to dismiss ideas that don't align with our own. The steel man technique is particularly valuable in academic and professional settings. For instance, when writing a research paper, don't just cite sources that support your argument. Actively seek out the strongest counterarguments and address them honestly and thoroughly. This not only strengthens your own argument but also demonstrates intellectual integrity and depth of understanding. In business settings, using the steel man technique can lead to more robust decision-making. Before finalizing a strategy, have team members articulate the strongest possible case against it. This process can reveal potential flaws or risks that might otherwise have been overlooked. 4. Embrace uncertainty. Be wary of absolute certainty, especially on complex issues. Embrace phrases like, "I'm not sure, I could be wrong," and "let's look at the evidence." This attitude of intellectual humility can help protect against the Dunning-Kruger effect and other biases that stem from overconfidence. Embracing uncertainty doesn't mean being indecisive or lacking conviction. Rather, it means recognizing the complexity of the world and the limitations of our knowledge. It's about being open to new information and willing to update our beliefs in light of evidence. Consider the approach of British mathematician and philosopher Bertrand Russell, who wrote, "The fundamental cause of trouble in the world today is that the stupid are cocksure while the intelligent are full of doubt." Russell's willingness to question his own beliefs and embrace uncertainty was key to his intellectual contributions across multiple fields. 5. Use systematic decision-making processes. When making important decisions, use structured processes that force you to consider multiple factors and perspectives. Tools like decision matrices or pro-con lists can help counteract the anchoring effect and other biases that might skew your judgment. For complex decisions, consider using techniques like the Delphi method, which involves soliciting opinions from a diverse group of experts anonymously, or scenario planning, which involves imagining and preparing for multiple possible future outcomes. The British government SAGE, Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, committee uses systematic processes to provide scientific and technical advice during emergencies. By bringing together experts from various fields and using structured decision-making processes, SAGE aims to provide balanced, evidence-based advice that minimizes the impact of individual biases. Exercises for developing mental flexibility. Developing mental flexibility is key to overcoming cognitive biases. Here are some exercises to help you cultivate this crucial skill. 1. The alternate history exercise. Choose a significant historical event and imagine how things might have unfolded if one key factor had been different. For example, how might British history have changed if the Spanish Armada had been successful in 1588? This exercise helps you practice considering alternative possibilities and outcomes. To make this exercise more challenging, try to trace the potential consequences through multiple steps. For instance, if the Spanish Armada had succeeded, how might this have affected the development of the British Empire? How might it have influenced the course of the Protestant Reformation in Europe? How might the map of the modern world look different? This exercise isn't just about historical speculation. It's about developing the ability to consider complex chains of cause and effect, and to recognize the often arbitrary nature of historical outcomes. This skill can be invaluable in fields ranging from business strategy to public policy. 2. The perspective shift. When faced with a disagreement or conflict, try to articulate the other person's perspective as charitably and completely as possible. Then, try to identify at least 3 ways in which their viewpoint might be valid or valuable. This exercise helps combat confirmation bias and promotes empathy and understanding. To enhance this exercise, try writing a persuasive essay or giving a speech from the perspective you disagree with. This deeper engagement can help you understand the emotional and logical foundations of different viewpoints. Consider the approach of British author G.K. Chesterton, who was known for his ability to articulate opposing viewpoints with clarity and charity. Chesterton believed that to truly understand an idea, one must be able to inhabit it fully, even if one ultimately disagrees with it. 3. The assumption challenge. Regularly challenge your own assumptions by asking, what if the opposite were true? For instance, if you believe that stricter regulations always lead to better outcomes, ask yourself, what if looser regulations sometimes lead to better outcomes? In what situations might this be true? This exercise helps you identify and question your underlying assumptions. To make this exercise more powerful, try to find real-world examples that contradict your assumptions. For instance, if you assume that economic growth always comes at the expense of environmental protection, research cases where environmental initiatives have actually driven economic growth. This exercise can be particularly valuable in fields like science and innovation, where challenging assumptions can lead to breakthroughs. Consider the case of British physician John Snow, who challenged the prevailing assumption that cholera was spread by miasma, or bad air. By questioning this assumption and looking for evidence, Snow was able to identify the true source of a cholera outbreak in London, laying the foundations for modern epidemiology. 4. The blind spot probe. Regularly ask trusted friends or colleagues to point out your blind spots. What biases or limitations in your thinking do they notice that you might be missing? This exercise leverages external perspectives to help you identify biases you might not be aware of. To make this exercise more structured, consider creating a personal advisory board, a small group of diverse individuals who you meet with regularly to discuss your ideas and decisions. This group can provide valuable outside perspectives and help you identify patterns in your thinking that you might not notice on your own. The concept of a personal advisory board has been used effectively by many successful leaders. For instance, British entrepreneur Richard Branson has often spoken about the importance of seeking diverse perspectives in his decision-making process. 5. The predictive journal. Start keeping a journal where you make predictions about future events, both in your personal life and in the wider world. Regularly review your predictions and assess their accuracy. This exercise can help you identify patterns in your thinking, including any consistent biases or blind spots. When making predictions, assign a confidence level to each one. Over time, you can assess whether your confidence levels are calibrated with reality. Are you overconfident in some areas? Underconfident in others? This exercise is similar to the techniques used by superforecasters, individuals who have demonstrated an exceptional ability to make accurate predictions about world events. As described by Philip Tetlock in his book Superforecasting, these individuals tend to be highly self-critical, constantly questioning their own assumptions and updating their beliefs based on new information. 6. The devil's advocate role-play. In group settings, assign someone to play the role of devil's advocate. This person's job is to constructively challenge the group's thinking, point out potential flaws in arguments, and suggest alternative viewpoints. Rotate this role among group members to ensure everyone gets practice in critical questioning. This technique has been used effectively in many high-stakes decision-making environments. For instance, the British intelligence service MI6 reportedly uses a system of red teams to challenge assumptions and identify potential weaknesses in intelligence assessments. By regularly engaging in these exercises, you can develop greater mental flexibility and resilience against cognitive biases. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate biases entirely, that's likely impossible, but to become more aware of them and develop strategies to mitigate their effects on our thinking and decision-making. As we conclude this chapter, it's important to recognize that understanding and overcoming cognitive biases is not a one-time achievement, but a lifelong journey. Even the most skilled critical thinkers are not immune to these biases. The key is to remain vigilant, continually questioning our own thought processes and striving for greater objectivity and clarity. Moreover, while we've focused on individual cognitive biases in this chapter, it's crucial to remember that these biases don't operate in isolation. They interact with each other and with our social and cultural contexts in complex ways. For instance, confirmation bias can reinforce and be reinforced by in-group bias, leading to polarization and echo chambers in social and political discourse. Understanding cognitive biases isn't just about improving our individual decision-making, it's also about fostering a more rational, empathetic, and collaborative society. By recognizing our shared susceptibility to these biases, we can approach disagreements with greater humility and understanding. We can create systems and institutions that are more resistant to the pitfalls of biased thinking. Consider, for instance, the implications of cognitive biases in the realm of public policy. The availability heuristic can lead to knee-jerk policy responses to vivid but rare events, potentially diverting resources from more pressing but less salient issues. Confirmation bias can contribute to political polarization, as people on different sides of an issue cherry-pick evidence that supports their existing views. By understanding these biases, policymakers can design more effective decision-making processes that counteract these tendencies. In the world of business and finance, cognitive biases can have profound economic consequences. The anchoring effect can lead to poor pricing decisions. Overconfidence bias can result in excessive risk-taking. By recognizing these biases, companies can implement safeguards in their decision-making processes, potentially avoiding costly mistakes. Even in the realm of scientific research, which we often think of as objective and rational, cognitive biases can play a significant role. Publication bias, the tendency to publish positive results more readily than negative ones, can skew our understanding of scientific phenomena. Researchers who are aware of this bias can take steps to counteract it, such as pre-registering their studies or advocating for the publication of null results. As we move forward in our exploration of critical thinking, it's crucial to remember that understanding cognitive biases is not about achieving perfect rationality. Our biases are deeply ingrained, evolutionarily old parts of our cognitive machinery. They've served important functions in our development as a species. The goal, rather, is to develop a metacognitive awareness, an ability to think about our thinking, that allows us to recognize when our biases might be leading us astray and to implement strategies to mitigate their effects. Moreover, as we become more aware of cognitive biases, we must guard against using this knowledge as a weapon against others. It's all too easy to spot biases in other people's thinking while remaining blind to our own. Instead, we should approach the subject of cognitive biases with humility and compassion, recognizing that we are all subject to these mental shortcuts and that overcoming them is a collective endeavor. In our next chapter, we'll build upon this foundation to explore effective problem-solving techniques. We'll learn how to approach complex problems systematically, generate creative solutions, and implement them effectively. The awareness of cognitive biases we've developed in this chapter will serve as a crucial tool in this process, helping us to avoid mental pitfalls and approach problems with greater clarity and objectivity. As we prepare to delve into the world of problem solving, take a moment to reflect on the biases we've discussed. How might they have influenced your thinking in the past? How can you use your new awareness to make better decisions in the future? Remember, the journey of critical thinking is one of continuous growth and self-reflection. Each step we take in understanding our own minds brings us closer to clearer, more effective thinking. Are you ready to put your enhanced critical thinking skills to the test in real-world problem-solving scenarios? Let's embark on the next stage of our intellectual journey, armed with a deeper understanding of the cognitive landscape we navigate every day. Chapter 5: The Art of Problem Solving. Imagine standing before the Gordian knot, that legendary tangle that stumped the greatest minds of the ancient world. Like Alexander the Great, who solved the unsolvable by thinking laterally and cutting through the knot, we too can approach seemingly intractable problems with ingenuity and methodical thinking. In this chapter, we'll delve deep into the art and science of problem solving, equipping you with a sophisticated toolkit to unravel even the most complex challenges. The anatomy of a problem. Before we can solve a problem, we must first understand its nature. Problems, like living organisms, have anatomy, structures and systems that, once understood, can reveal pathways to solutions. Breaking down complex problems. The process of problem decomposition is akin to the work of a master watchmaker disassembling a complex timepiece. Each gear, spring, and cog is carefully examined, its function understood in relation to the whole. Consider the monumental challenge faced by Sir Joseph Bazalgette in 19th-century London. Tasked with solving the city's sewage crisis, Bazalgette didn't see just one problem, but an interconnected web of issues. 1. Public health concerns due to cholera outbreaks. 2. The limitations of existing infrastructure. 3. The geography and topology of London. 4. Financing such a massive project. 5. Political and public will. By breaking down the overarching problem into these components, Bazalgette was able to address each systematically, ultimately creating a sewer system that not only solved the immediate crisis but continued to serve London well into the 21st century. To master problem decomposition. 1. Employ systems thinking, understand how different components of the problem interact. 2. Use mind mapping techniques to visually represent the problem's structure. 3. Apply the Socratic method of questioning to probe deeper into each aspect of the problem. 4. Consider the problem from multiple perspectives: technological, social, economic, environmental. The role of problem framing. How we frame a problem can dramatically influence our approach to solving it. The British philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The greatest challenge to any thinker is stating the problem in a way that will allow a solution." This process of problem framing is not just about stating what's wrong, but about envisioning what right looks like. For instance, instead of framing the issue of urban congestion as, "How do we fit more cars on our roads?" we might ask, "How can we improve the movement of people and goods in our cities?" This reframing opens up a whole new realm of potential solutions, from improved public transportation to remote work policies. Techniques for effective problem framing include: 1. The 5 Whys method, developed by Sakichi Toyota. 2. Appreciative inquiry, which focuses on what's working rather than what's broken. 3. Boundary examination, which questions the assumed limits of the problem. 4. Stakeholder analysis, considering how the problem affects different groups. The science of information gathering. In our age of information abundance, the challenge is not finding information, but finding the right information and interpreting it correctly. Advanced techniques for information gathering and analysis. Beyond basic research, consider these sophisticated approaches. 1. Delphi technique. This structured communication technique, developed by the RAND Corporation, involves iterative questionnaires sent to a panel of experts. It's particularly useful for forecasting and has been used in everything from technology assessments to public policy decisions. 2. Big data analytics. Utilizing large datasets can reveal patterns and insights not visible at smaller scales. For example, the NHS has used big data analytics to identify factors contributing to hospital readmissions, allowing for more targeted interventions. 3. Ethnographic research. This anthropological approach involves immersing oneself in the context of the problem. When IDEO was tasked with redesigning the shopping trolley, they spent time observing and interviewing shoppers in their natural environment, leading to insights that wouldn't have been captured by traditional market research. 4. System dynamics modeling. This computer-aided approach to policy analysis and design, developed by J. Forrester at MIT, is used to understand the nonlinear behavior of complex systems over time. It's been applied to urban planning, economic policy, and even climate change modeling. Overcoming information gathering biases. As we gather information, we must be vigilant against cognitive biases that can skew our understanding. 1. Availability bias. Combat this by actively seeking out less readily available information. If you're researching a medical condition, don't stop at the first WebMD article, dig into peer-reviewed journals and consult multiple expert sources. 2. Confirmation bias. Actively seek out information that contradicts your initial hypotheses. Create a red team whose job is to challenge your assumptions and findings. 3. Anchoring bias. Be wary of initial pieces of information unduly influencing your judgment. Use techniques like blind data analysis, where key figures are hidden until after you've made your initial assessments. 4. Survivorship bias. Remember to consider failed cases, not just successful ones. When studying business strategies, for instance, examine companies that didn't survive, not just industry leaders. The art of solution generation. Generating solutions is where science meets creativity, where the analytical mind dances with the imaginative spirit. Advanced creative problem-solving techniques. 1. Synectics, developed by George M. Prince and William J. Gordon. This approach uses analogies and metaphors to make the familiar strange and the strange familiar. For instance, when designing a new type of spray nozzle, researchers at NASA looked at the way orchids and bromeliad plants distribute nectar. 2. Trees, theory of inventive problem solving. This algorithm for generating innovative ideas, developed by Soviet inventor Genrikh Altshuler, is based on the study of patterns of invention in global patent literature. It's been used in fields ranging from product design to software development. 3. Biomimicry. This approach seeks sustainable solutions by emulating nature's time-tested patterns and strategies. The Eastgate Center in Harare, Zimbabwe, uses a ventilation system inspired by termite mounds, resulting in remarkable energy efficiency. 4. Morphological analysis. This method, pioneered by Swiss astrophysicist Fritz Zwicky, involves creating a matrix of all possible solutions by identifying the key parameters of the problem and their potential values. It's been used in fields as diverse as policy analysis and new product development. Balancing divergent and convergent thinking. Effective solution generation requires a dance between divergent thinking, generating many ideas, and convergent thinking, evaluating and selecting ideas. 1. Use timeboxing techniques to separate divergent and convergent phases. For instance, in a brainstorming session, have a 20-minute no criticism period for idea generation, followed by a structured evaluation phase. 2. Employ Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats method, but add a twist. Use the hats in different sequences to promote both divergent and convergent thinking. For example, start with the green hat, creativity, for divergent thinking, then use the yellow, benefits, and black, cautions, hats for convergent thinking. 3. Use analogical reasoning to spark divergent thinking, then apply criteria-based decision-making for convergent thinking. The invention of the printing press, for instance, came from Gutenberg's divergent leap of applying the concept of the wine press to text reproduction, followed by convergent refinement of the technology. Implementation, from idea to reality. A brilliant solution poorly implemented remains just that, an idea. The art of implementation is about bringing solutions to life effectively and sustainably. Sophisticated implementation strategies. 1. Agile methodology. While often associated with software development, Agile principles can be applied to many types of projects. Its iterative approach, with regular sprints and retrospectives, allows for continuous improvement and adaptation. 2. Theory of constraints. TOC developed by Eliyahu M. Goldratt. TOC focuses on identifying and addressing the most significant limiting factor, constraint, that stands in the way of achieving a goal. This approach has been successfully applied in manufacturing, project management, and even personal development. 3. Change management frameworks. Models like Kotter's 8-step process for leading change or the ADKR model provide structured approaches to implementing solutions that require significant organizational or behavioral changes. 4. Systems thinking in implementation. Consider the ripple effects of your solution. How will it impact different parts of the system? What feedback loops might it create? The introduction of rabbits to Australia for hunting in the 1850s serves as a cautionary tale of implementation without thorough systems consideration. Monitoring and adaptation. Implementation is not a set-it-and-forget-it process. Sophisticated problem solvers use advanced monitoring and adaptation techniques. 1. Real-time data analytics. Use IoT sensors and data analytics to get immediate feedback on your solution's performance. Smart cities like Barcelona use this approach to monitor and adjust everything from traffic flow to waste management in real time. 2. Bayesian updating. This statistical technique allows you to continually update your beliefs and your solution as new evidence comes in. It's used in fields ranging from medical diagnosis to artificial intelligence. 3. Scenario planning. Developed by Herman Kahn and popularized by Royal Dutch Shell, this technique involves imagining various possible futures and how your solution might fare in each. It allows for more robust, adaptable implementations. 4. Participatory monitoring and evaluation. PMNE. This approach involves stakeholders at different levels working together to monitor or evaluate a particular project, program, or policy. It's particularly useful for complex social interventions where top-down monitoring might miss crucial on-the-ground insights. Case studies in advanced problem solving. Let's examine some sophisticated examples of problem solving in action. The eradication of smallpox. The World Health Organization's successful campaign to eradicate smallpox is a masterclass in complex problem solving. 1. Problem framing. Instead of seeing it as a medical problem, they framed it as a logistical and social challenge. 2. Decomposition. They broke down the problem by region and focused on surveillance and containment rather than mass vaccination. 3. Creative solution generation. They developed the ring vaccination strategy, targeting contacts of infected individuals rather than trying to vaccinate entire populations. 4. Implementation. They used a clear, global strategy but allowed for local adaptation. In India, for instance, they offered rewards for reporting cases, turning the entire population into a surveillance network. 5. Monitoring and adaptation. They continuously gathered data and adjusted their approach, eventually shifting to a more aggressive search and containment strategy in the final phases. The rescue of Apollo 13. When an oxygen tank exploded on Apollo 13, NASA faced a complex, life-or-death problem with severe constraints. 1. Problem framing. They quickly reframed the mission from a moon landing to a successful failure, getting the astronauts home safely. 2. Information gathering. They leveraged the diverse expertise of their entire organization, from engineers to medical professionals. 3. Creative solution generation. They had to innovate rapidly, famously creating a carbon dioxide filter adapter from available materials on the spacecraft. 4. Implementation. They executed their solutions with precision, constantly communicating between ground control and the spacecraft. 5. Monitoring and adaptation. They continually monitored the astronauts' conditions and the spacecraft systems, making adjustments as new challenges arose. The development of the COVID-19 vaccine. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines in 2020 showcases problem solving at a global scale. 1. Problem decomposition. The challenge was broken down into multiple streams: vaccine development, clinical trials, manufacturing scale-up, and distribution logistics. 2. Information gathering. Researchers built on years of prior coronavirus and vaccine research, rapidly sharing new findings globally. 3. Creative solutions. Novel approaches like mRNA vaccines were fast-tracked alongside traditional methods. 4. Implementation. Unprecedented collaboration between governments, pharmaceutical companies, and research institutions allowed for parallel rather than sequential processes. 5. Monitoring and adaptation. continuous monitoring led to rapid identification of side effects and new variants, allowing for quick adaptations in vaccine strategies. As we conclude this chapter, remember that mastering the art of problem-solving is a lifelong journey. Each problem you encounter is an opportunity to refine your skills, to think more deeply, more creatively, and more systematically. The techniques we've explored, from sophisticated problem decomposition and framing, to advanced information gathering and analysis, to creative solution generation and robust implementation strategies, form a powerful toolkit. But like any set of tools, their true power lies in how skillfully you apply them. As you move forward, challenge yourself to approach each problem you encounter with the mindset of a master problem solver. Ask deeper questions. Seek out diverse perspectives. Push beyond your first ideas to find truly innovative solutions. And always be willing to learn and adapt. In our next chapter, we'll delve into the crucial skill of analyzing arguments and information. We'll explore how to dissect complex arguments, evaluate evidence, and navigate the often murky waters of rhetoric and persuasion. This skill will complement your problem-solving abilities, allowing you to more effectively gather and analyze information, and to critically evaluate proposed solutions. Are you ready to further sharpen your analytical skills and become a more discerning thinker? Let's continue our journey into the heart of critical thinking, where the art of problem-solving meets the science of rigorous analysis. Chapter 6: Dissecting Arguments and Information. In the vast marketplace of ideas that characterizes our information age, the ability to critically analyze arguments and information is not just a valuable skill, it's an essential survival tool. As we navigate through a sea of claims, counterclaims, and an ever-expanding deluge of data, we must sharpen our analytical faculties to discern truth from falsehood, strength from weakness, and insight from mere noise. In this chapter, we will delve deep into the art and science of argument analysis and information evaluation. We'll explore sophisticated techniques for breaking down complex arguments, assessing the quality of evidence, recognizing logical fallacies, and synthesizing information from diverse sources. By the end of this chapter, you'll be equipped with a powerful toolkit for navigating the most challenging intellectual terrains. The anatomy of an argument. Before we can effectively analyze arguments, we must first understand their structure. An argument, in its simplest form, consists of premises leading to a conclusion. However, real-world arguments are often far more complex, with multiple layers of reasoning, implicit assumptions, and rhetorical flourishes. Tolman's model of argument. Stephen Tolman, a British philosopher, developed a more sophisticated model of argument structure that goes beyond the basic premise-conclusion format. His model includes 6 components. 1. Claim, the main point or conclusion of the argument. 2. Data, the facts or evidence used to support the claim. 3. Warrant, the logical connection between the data and the claim. 4. Backing, additional support for the warrant. 5. Qualifier, words or phrases that limit the certainty of the claim. 6. Rebuttal, potential counterarguments or exceptions. Consider this example. Claim, the UK should invest more in renewable energy. Data, renewable energy sources are becoming increasingly cost-effective and efficient. Warrant, investing in cost-effective and efficient energy sources is beneficial for the country. Backing, studies show that countries with higher investment in renewables have stronger long-term economic growth. Qualifier, probably. Rebuttal, unless there are unforeseen technological breakthroughs in other energy sectors. By breaking down arguments using Tolman's model, we can more easily identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas that require further scrutiny. Argument mapping. Argument mapping is a visual technique for representing the structure of arguments. Pioneered by philosophers like Timothy Van Gelder, argument mapping allows us to see the relationships between claims, reasons, and objections more clearly. Tools like Rationale and MindMap allow you to create sophisticated argument maps. These visual representations can help in 1. Identifying hidden assumptions. 2. Recognizing circular reasoning. 3. Assessing the overall coherence of an argument. 4. Spotting gaps in logic or evidence. For complex debates, like those surrounding climate change policy or economic theory, argument mapping can be an invaluable tool for understanding and evaluating different positions. Evaluating evidence and credibility. In our data-rich world, the challenge often lies not in finding information, but in assessing its quality and relevance. The CRAAP test and beyond. The CRAAP test, currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose, is a widely used method for evaluating sources. However, for more sophisticated analysis, we need to go further. 1. Methodological assessment. For scientific studies, examine the methodology closely. Was the sample size adequate? Were appropriate controls used? Was the study pre-registered to avoid p-hacking? 2. Funding and conflicts of interest. Look beyond just who authored a study to who funded it and whether there are potential conflicts of interest. 3. Replication and meta-analysis. In scientific fields, look for replicated studies and meta-analyses, which provide a more robust view than single studies. 4. Expert consensus versus outlier views. While maverick thinkers can sometimes revolutionize fields, be cautious of views that go against a strong expert consensus without compelling evidence. 5. Primary versus secondary sources. Whenever possible, go back to primary sources rather than relying on secondary interpretations. Bayesian reasoning in evidence evaluation. Bayesian reasoning, based on Bayes' theorem, provides a powerful framework for updating our beliefs based on new evidence. It encourages us to consider 1. Prior probability. How likely was our hypothesis before encountering this new evidence? 2. Likelihood. How probable is the evidence given our hypothesis? 3. Posterior probability. How likely is our hypothesis given the new evidence? This approach can help us avoid both undue skepticism towards new ideas and unwarranted enthusiasm for weak evidence that supports our existing beliefs. Recognizing logical fallacies and rhetorical techniques. Logical fallacies are errors in reasoning that can undermine the validity of an argument. While many are familiar with common fallacies like ad hominem attacks or false dichotomies, more subtle fallacies require keener detection skills. Advanced logical fallacies. 1. Motte and Bailey. Named after a type of medieval fortification, this involves conflating two positions, one modest and easy to defend, the motte, and one more controversial, the Bailey. When challenged, the arguer retreats to the motte while still implying the Bailey. 2. Apex fallacy. Judging a group based on the performance of its top members, ignoring the average or less successful members. 3. Nirvana fallacy. Comparing actual things with unrealistic, idealized alternatives, often used to discredit viable solutions because they are not perfect. 4. Chronological snobbery. Dismissing historical ideas or practices as inherently inferior without considering their context or enduring value. Sophisticated rhetorical techniques. 1. Paralipsis. Drawing attention to something by professing to ignore it. I won't even mention my opponent's questionable financial dealings. 2. Prolepsis. Anticipating and preemptively addressing potential objections to strengthen one's argument. 3. Anecdotal leadoff. Using a compelling story to set the emotional tone before presenting the actual argument, potentially biasing the audience's reception. 4. False modesty. Appearing humble to gain the audience's sympathy and trust, while actually promoting oneself or one's ideas. Recognizing these techniques doesn't necessarily invalidate an argument, but it allows us to separate the logical content from the rhetorical packaging. Synthesizing information from multiple sources. In our interconnected world, important issues rarely have single, authoritative sources of information. The ability to synthesize information from multiple, often conflicting sources is crucial. Advanced synthesis techniques. 1. Triangulation. Used in fields from intelligence analysis to academic research, triangulation involves using multiple methods or data sources to increase the credibility and validity of results. 2. Delphi method. This structured communication technique uses iterative rounds of questionnaires sent to a panel of experts. It's particularly useful for forecasting and has been used in technology assessments and policy decisions. 3. Integrative literature review. This goes beyond a simple summary of existing research to generate new frameworks and perspectives. 4. System dynamics modeling. Developed by J. Forrester at MIT, this approach uses computer simulation to understand complex systems and how different sources of information interact over time. Dealing with conflicting information. When sources conflict, consider 1. Methodological differences. Do the conflicting results stem from different methodologies? If so, which methodology is more appropriate for the question at hand? 2. Scope and context. Are the conflicting sources actually addressing the same question, or are they looking at different aspects of a larger issue? 3. Paradigm shifts. In rapidly evolving fields, conflicting information might represent a paradigm shift in progress. Thomas Kuhn's work on scientific revolutions provides a framework for understanding these transitions. 4. Synthesis through dialectic. Sometimes, apparent conflicts can be resolved through a Hegelian dialectic process, where thesis and antithesis are reconciled in a higher synthesis. Case studies in advanced information analysis. The MMR vaccine controversy. The 1998 Lancet paper by Andrew Wakefield suggesting a link between the MMR vaccine and autism is a classic case study in the importance of rigorous information analysis. 1. Initial impact. the paper, despite its small sample size and speculative conclusions, received widespread media attention and led to a significant drop in vaccination rates. 2. Scrutiny and replication. Larger studies failed to replicate Wakefield's findings. Closer examination revealed methodological flaws and undisclosed conflicts of interest. 3. Retraction and consequences. The paper was eventually retracted, and Wakefield was struck off the medical register. However, the incident had lasting impacts on public health and the anti-vaccination movement. 4. Lessons. This case highlights the importance of methodological scrutiny, the role of peer review and replication in science, and the challenges of communicating scientific information to the public. The Reinhardt-Rogoff controversy. In 2010, economists Carmen Reinhardt and Kenneth Rogoff published a paper suggesting that countries with debt-to-GDP ratios above 90% experience significantly lower growth. This work was influential in promoting austerity policies. 1. Initial impact. The paper was widely cited by policymakers to justify austerity measures. 2. Reanalysis. In 2013, Thomas Herndon, a graduate student, attempted to replicate the study and found significant errors, including a spreadsheet coding error and selective exclusion of data. 3. Debate and refinement. The ensuing debate led to more nuanced understanding of the relationship between debt and growth, highlighting the importance of factors like the direction of causality and country-specific contexts. 4. Lessons. This case demonstrates the importance of data transparency, replication in economics, and the careful interpretation of statistical relationships in policy decisions. The replication crisis in psychology. Over the past decade, psychology, along with other fields, has grappled with a replication crisis, where many well-known studies failed to replicate. 1. Initial concerns. Attempts to replicate classic studies in psychology often failed or produced much smaller effect sizes. 2. Systemic analysis. Investigations revealed issues including publication bias, p-hacking, and small sample sizes. 3. Reforms. The field has implemented reforms including pre-registration of studies, emphasis on replication, and new statistical approaches. 4. Lessons. This ongoing situation highlights the importance of robust methodologies, the limitations of single studies, and the self-correcting nature of the scientific process. Conclusion. Towards intellectual autonomy. As we conclude this chapter, it's important to recognize that the skills of argument analysis and information evaluation are not merely academic exercises. They are essential tools for intellectual autonomy in a world where misinformation and sophisticated persuasion techniques are rampant. By mastering these skills, you empower yourself to 1. Make more informed decisions in both personal and professional contexts. 2. Engage more effectively in public discourse and policy debates. 3. Continually update and refine your understanding of complex issues. 4. Resist manipulation by recognizing and countering fallacious arguments and misleading rhetoric. Remember, the goal is not to become cynical or dismissive of all arguments and information. Rather, it's to develop a nuanced, critical approach that can appreciate strong arguments and valuable information while identifying weaknesses and areas for improvement. As you move forward, challenge yourself to apply these techniques to real-world issues you encounter. Analyze news articles, scientific papers, policy proposals, and even casual arguments in your daily life. With practice, you'll find yourself becoming a more discerning thinker, better equipped to navigate the complexities of our information-rich world. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to effectively communicate the results of your critical thinking and analysis. After all, the ability to dissect arguments and evaluate information is most powerful when paired with the skill to articulate your insights clearly and persuasively. Are you ready to become not just a critical thinker, but a compelling communicator of critical thought? Let's continue our journey into the art and science of intellectual discourse. Chapter 7: Engaging with Diverse Perspectives. In our journey through the landscape of critical thinking, we now arrive at a summit from which we can survey the vast panorama of human thought. The view from this vantage point is not a single, uniform picture, but a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives, each offering unique insights into the complex reality we inhabit. In this chapter, we will explore the crucial skill of engaging with diverse perspectives, a skill that not only enhances our critical thinking but also enriches our understanding of the world and our place in it. The imperative of intellectual diversity. Before we delve into the techniques for engaging with diverse perspectives, let us first consider why this engagement is so crucial. The limitations of individual perspective. As brilliantly articulated by the philosopher Thomas Nagel in his seminal work, The View from Nowhere, each of us is constrained by our own subjective viewpoint. Our perspectives are shaped by our individual experiences, cultural backgrounds, education, and cognitive biases. While these unique viewpoints are valuable, they are inevitably limited. Consider the ancient Indian parable of the blind men and the elephant. Each man, touching a different part of the elephant, comes to a different conclusion about what an elephant is. Only by combining their perspectives can they begin to understand the true nature of the elephant. Similarly, by engaging with diverse perspectives, we can begin to piece together a more complete understanding of complex issues. The danger of echo chambers. In our increasingly polarized world, the tendency to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals and ideas has been exacerbated by social media algorithms and filter bubbles. This phenomenon, known as homophily, can lead to echo chambers where our existing beliefs are constantly reinforced and rarely challenged. The dangers of such echo chambers were starkly illustrated in the lead-up to the 2008 financial crisis. Many economists and financial experts, operating within a narrow paradigm of efficient markets, failed to foresee the impending collapse. Those who did raise alarms, like Nouriel Roubini and Raghuram Rajan, were often dismissed precisely because their views diverged from the prevailing wisdom. The power of cognitive diversity. Research in fields ranging from organizational psychology to complex problem-solving has consistently shown the value of cognitive diversity. Scott Page's diversity prediction theorem mathematically demonstrates that under certain conditions, the diversity of a group can be more important than individual ability in problem solving. For instance, the success of prediction markets in forecasting everything from election outcomes to product sales can be attributed to their ability to aggregate diverse perspectives. Similarly, the wisdom of crowds phenomenon, first noted by Francis Galton in 1907, relies on the diversity of independent judgments to produce surprisingly accurate aggregate predictions. Techniques for engaging with diverse perspectives. Understanding the importance of diverse perspectives is one thing, actively and effectively engaging with them is another. Let's explore some advanced techniques for doing so. Perspective taking and empathy. Perspective taking goes beyond merely acknowledging different viewpoints, it involves actively trying to see the world through another's eyes. This skill, closely related to cognitive empathy, can be cultivated through various methods. 1. Narrative transportation, immersing oneself in stories, through literature, film, or other media, from diverse cultures and viewpoints can enhance our ability to take on different perspectives. Research by Marr et al., 2006, has shown that fiction readers tend to perform better on tests of empathy and social cognition. 2. Role-playing exercises, structured role-playing, where individuals are asked to argue from perspectives different from their own, can be a powerful tool for developing perspective-taking skills. This technique is used in diplomatic training and conflict resolution programs. 3. Mindfulness meditation. Some studies suggest that mindfulness practices can enhance cognitive empathy by increasing our awareness of our own mental states and those of others. Dialectical thinking. Dialectical thinking, rooted in Hegelian philosophy and elaborated by psychologists like Klaus Riegel, involves the integration of contradictory perspectives into a higher-order understanding. This approach recognizes that apparent contradictions often reflect different aspects of a complex reality. Techniques for cultivating dialectical thinking include: 1. Thesis-antithesis-synthesis. When confronted with opposing viewpoints, actively seek to formulate a synthesis that incorporates elements of both. 2. Enantiodromia. This Jungian concept suggests that any extreme position tends to turn into its opposite. Reflect on how extreme versions of a perspective might lead to its antithesis. 3. Yin-yang analysis. Inspired by Chinese philosophy, this involves looking for the complementary aspects of seemingly opposing ideas. Intellectual humility. Engaging genuinely with diverse perspectives requires a stance of intellectual humility, the recognition that our own views may be incorrect or incomplete. This attitude can be cultivated through: 1. Falsification exercises. Actively seek out evidence and arguments that could prove your own views wrong. This approach, inspired by Karl Popper's philosophy of science, can help prevent confirmation bias. 2. Calibration training. Regularly assess the accuracy of your own judgments and predictions. This can help you develop a more realistic sense of your own knowledge and abilities. 3. Epistemological reflection. Engage in philosophical inquiry about the nature of knowledge and the limitations of human cognition. Works like Duncan Pritchard's "What is this thing called knowledge?" can provide a starting point. Structured dialectical inquiry. To systematically engage with diverse perspectives on complex issues, consider using structured methods of inquiry. 1. Adversarial collaboration. This approach, advocated by Daniel Kahneman, involves researchers with opposing views working together to resolve their disagreements. While originally proposed for scientific research, it can be adapted to other domains. 2. Delphi technique. This method, developed by the RAND Corporation, involves iterative rounds of anonymous feedback from a diverse panel of experts. It can be particularly useful for exploring future scenarios or complex policy issues. 3. Structured analytic techniques. Used in intelligence analysis, methods like analysis of competing hypotheses, ACH, or quadrant crunching can help systematically consider multiple perspectives and hypotheses. Navigating cognitive dissonance and belief updating. Engaging with diverse perspectives often leads to cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when confronted with information that conflicts with our existing beliefs. While this discomfort can lead to defensive reactions, it can also be a catalyst for growth and learning if approached mindfully. Strategies for productive engagement with cognitive dissonance. 1. Metacognitive awareness. Develop the habit of noticing when you're experiencing cognitive dissonance. This self-awareness can help you respond more deliberately rather than reflexively. 2. Graded exposure. When encountering radically different perspectives, start with areas of partial agreement and gradually work towards more significant differences. This can help manage the emotional impact of cognitive dissonance. 3. The values affirmation. Research by Steele and Liu, 1983, suggests that affirming core values can make people more open to information that challenges their beliefs. Before engaging with challenging perspectives, reflect on your core values. Bayesian belief updating. Bayesian reasoning provides a formal framework for updating beliefs in light of new evidence. While the mathematical details can be complex, the core principles can guide our approach to belief revision. 1. Prior probabilities. Explicitly consider your prior beliefs and their basis. How confident are you in these beliefs, and why? 2. Likelihood ratios. When encountering new information, consider not just whether it supports or contradicts your view, but how likely this information would be under different hypotheses. 3. Gradual updating. Remember that belief revision is often a gradual process. Small updates in response to new evidence can accumulate over time. Case studies in perspective integration. Let's examine some real-world examples of how engaging with diverse perspectives has led to breakthroughs and innovations. The development of quantum mechanics. The development of quantum mechanics in the early 20th century required physicists to radically rethink their understanding of reality. The integration of diverse perspectives was crucial. 1. Wave-particle duality. The resolution of the wave-particle debate required accepting seemingly contradictory perspectives, leading to Niels Bohr's complementarity principle. 2. Copenhagen versus many worlds. The ongoing debate between different interpretations of quantum mechanics, e.g., Copenhagen, many worlds, de Broglie, continues to drive deeper understanding of the theory's implications. 3. Interdisciplinary insights. The development of quantum mechanics drew insights from diverse fields, including classical physics, mathematics, and philosophy. The civil rights movement. The success of the civil rights movement in the United States depended on the integration of diverse perspectives and strategies. 1. Legal versus direct action. The movement integrated legal strategies, e.g., NAACP's court cases, with direct action, e.g., sit-ins and marches, recognizing the complementary nature of these approaches. 2. Nonviolence and self-defense. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, often portrayed as opposites, actually engaged in a complex dialogue that shaped the movement's overall strategy. 3. The intersectionality. The movement increasingly recognized the intersection of racial justice with other issues like economic justice and women's rights, broadening its perspective and coalition. Climate change policy. The development of effective climate change policies requires the integration of diverse perspectives from science, economics, politics, and ethics. 1. Mitigation versus adaptation. Policy approaches have evolved to recognize the need for both reducing emissions, mitigation, and preparing for unavoidable changes, adaptation. 2. Global versus local. Effective policies must balance global coordination with sensitivity to local contexts and needs. 3. Technology versus behavior change. Strategies increasingly recognize the need for both technological solutions and changes in individual and societal behavior. Conclusion: towards a kaleidoscopic worldview. As we conclude this chapter, let us return to the metaphor of the panoramic view. Engaging with diverse perspectives doesn't just add more details to our view of reality, it transforms that view into something akin to a kaleidoscope. Each turn, each new perspective we incorporate, rearranges the patterns of our understanding, revealing new connections and possibilities. Developing this kaleidoscopic worldview is not just an intellectual exercise. In our increasingly interconnected and complex world, the ability to engage productively with diverse perspectives is crucial for 1. Effective problem solving. As we've seen, cognitive diversity enhances our collective ability to address complex challenges. 2. Ethical decision making. Understanding multiple perspectives is crucial for making ethical decisions that consider the impacts on diverse stakeholders. 3. Social cohesion. In an era of increasing polarization, the ability to bridge divides and find common ground is more important than ever. 4. Personal growth. Engaging with diverse perspectives expands our own cognitive horizons, leading to personal and intellectual growth. As you move forward, challenge yourself to actively seek out perspectives that differ from your own. Engage not just with diversity of identity, but diversity of thought. Practice the techniques we've discussed: perspective taking, dialectical thinking, intellectual humility, in your daily life and work. Remember, the goal is not to achieve a bland consensus or to abandon your own viewpoint. Rather, it's to develop a richer, more nuanced understanding of the world in all its complexity. It's to become not just a critical thinker, but an empathetic and wise one. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to synthesize the diverse perspectives we've engaged with into coherent and effective decision-making. How can we navigate the wealth of viewpoints we've encountered to arrive at well-reasoned judgments and actions? Join us as we delve into the art and science of decision-making in a complex world. Chapter 8: Mastering the Art of Decision-Making. In the labyrinth of modern life, we find ourselves continually at crossroads, faced with decisions that range from the mundane to the monumental. Each choice we make is a thread in the tapestry of our lives and our world. As we've journeyed through the realms of critical thinking, from logical analysis to engaging with diverse perspectives, we've been honing the skills necessary for this most crucial of tasks: decision-making. In this chapter, we will explore the intricate art and rigorous science of decision-making. We'll delve into advanced frameworks for structuring decisions, sophisticated techniques for navigating uncertainty, and nuanced approaches for balancing competing values and objectives. Our aim is not just to make good decisions, but to cultivate wisdom in the face of complexity. The anatomy of decision-making. Before we can master decision-making, we must understand its fundamental components and the cognitive processes involved. The dual process theory of decision-making. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky revolutionized our understanding of decision-making with their dual process theory, which posits two systems of thinking. 1. System 1, fast, intuitive, and emotional. 2. System 2, slower, more deliberative, and logical. While System 1 is often sufficient for routine decisions, complex choices require the engagement of System 2. However, even our most reasoned decisions are influenced by the intuitive judgments of System 1. The art of decision-making involves learning to harmonize these two systems, knowing when to trust our intuitions and when to engage in more deliberative analysis. The role of heuristics and biases. As we explored in earlier chapters, our decisions are profoundly influenced by cognitive heuristics and biases. Some key ones to be aware of in decision-making include: 1. Anchoring effect, our tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered. 2. Sunk cost fallacy, the inclination to continue an endeavor once an investment in time, effort, or money has been made. 3. The availability heuristic, judging the probability of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. 4. Overconfidence bias, overestimating our own abilities and the accuracy of our predictions. Understanding these biases is crucial, but simply being aware of them is not enough. We must develop strategies to mitigate their effects on our decision-making processes. Advanced frameworks for decision-making. Let's explore some sophisticated frameworks for structuring and analyzing complex decisions. Multi-criteria decision analysis, MCDA. MCDA provides a structured approach to considering multiple, often conflicting criteria in decision-making. This approach is particularly useful for complex decisions with numerous stakeholders and competing objectives. Key steps in MCDA include: 1. Defining the decision context and objectives. 2. Identifying alternatives. 3. Determining criteria for evaluation. 4. Weighting the criteria. 5. Scoring alternatives against criteria. 6. Synthesizing results and conducting sensitivity analysis. For example, in deciding on a national energy policy, criteria might include cost-effectiveness, environmental impact, energy security, and social equity. MCDA provides a framework for systematically considering and balancing these diverse factors. Decision trees and influence diagrams. Decision trees provide a visual representation of decision sequences and their possible outcomes. They are particularly useful for decisions involving multiple stages and uncertain outcomes. Influence diagrams, a more advanced variation, allow for the representation of complex relationships between decisions, uncertain events, and outcomes. They're particularly valuable in fields like project management and strategic planning. Consider a pharmaceutical company deciding whether to proceed with clinical trials for a new drug. A decision tree could map out the potential outcomes at each stage of the trial process, while an influence diagram could capture the complex interplay of factors like market conditions, regulatory environment, and scientific uncertainties. Bayesian decision theory. Bayesian decision theory provides a mathematical framework for making decisions under uncertainty. It involves 1. Specifying prior probabilities for different states of the world. 2. Defining a utility function that quantifies the desirability of different outcomes. 3. Calculating expected utilities for different actions. 4. Choosing the action with the highest expected utility. This approach is particularly powerful when combined with techniques for updating probabilities as new information becomes available, Bayesian updating. For instance, a central bank using Bayesian decision theory to set interest rates would start with prior probabilities for different economic scenarios, define a utility function based on policy objectives, e.g., balancing inflation and unemployment, and update its model as new economic data becomes available. Navigating uncertainty and complexity. In an increasingly complex and uncertain world, traditional decision-making approaches often fall short. Let's explore some advanced techniques for decision-making in complex, uncertain environments. Robust decision-making. Developed by the RAND Corporation, robust decision-making, RDM, is an approach designed for decisions characterized by deep uncertainty, situations where the probability distributions of key variables are unknown or disputed. Key principles of RDM include 1. Considering a wide range of plausible futures. 2. Seeking strategies that perform well across many scenarios, rather than optimally in any one scenario. 3. Using adaptive strategies that can be adjusted as new information becomes available. 4. Employing interactive visualization to support stakeholder deliberation. RDM has been applied to challenges ranging from water resource management in a changing climate to long-term national security planning. Real options analysis. Borrowed from financial theory, real options analysis provides a framework for making decisions that preserve future flexibility. It's particularly useful for irreversible investments in uncertain environments. Key concepts include 1. Option value, the value of preserving future choice. 2. Staging, breaking decisions into phases to allow for learning and adaptation. 3. Flexibility premium, the additional cost of maintaining future options, which can be weighed against potential benefits. For example, in urban planning, building foundations strong enough to support future vertical expansion represents a real option. The extra cost, flexibility premium, is weighed against the potential future value of expansion rights. Scenario planning. Pioneered by Royal Dutch Shell, scenario planning involves developing detailed narratives about possible futures to inform decision-making. Unlike forecasting, which attempts to predict the most likely future, scenario planning aims to prepare for a range of plausible futures. Key steps include 1. Identifying key drivers and uncertainties. 2. Developing a set of diverse, plausible scenarios. 3. Exploring the implications of each scenario. 4. Identifying robust strategies that perform well across scenarios. Scenario planning is particularly valuable for long-term strategic decisions in volatile environments. For instance, energy companies use scenario planning to inform long-term investments in the face of uncertainties around technology development, climate policy, and geopolitical shifts. Ethical dimensions of decision-making. As we navigate complex decisions, we must grapple not just with what we can do, but with what we should do. Ethical decision-making requires us to consider the moral implications of our choices and to navigate competing values and obligations. Ethical frameworks for decision-making. Several ethical frameworks can guide our decision-making. 1. Utilitarianism focuses on maximizing overall well-being or happiness for the greatest number of people. 2. Deontological ethics emphasizes adherence to moral rules or duties, regardless of consequences. 3. Virtue ethics centers on the moral character of the decision-maker and what a virtuous person would do. 4. Care ethics prioritizes maintaining relationships and responding to the needs of others. In practice, many ethical decisions require balancing insights from multiple frameworks. For instance, a public health official deciding on pandemic measures might consider utilitarian concerns, maximizing overall health outcomes, deontological principles, respecting individual rights, and care ethics, protecting vulnerable populations. stakeholder analysis and ethical impact assessment. For decisions with wide-ranging impacts, it's crucial to consider diverse stakeholders and potential ethical implications systematically. Techniques include 1. Stakeholder mapping, identifying all parties affected by a decision and their interests. 2. Ethical impact assessment, systematically analyzing the potential ethical consequences of different courses of action. 3. Value-sensitive design, incorporating ethical values into the design process for new technologies or policies. These approaches can help surface potential ethical issues and conflicts early in the decision-making process. Case studies in complex decision-making. Let's examine some real-world examples of complex decision-making in action. The Cuban Missile Crisis. The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis represents one of the most high-stakes decision-making scenarios in modern history. Key aspects of the U.S. response included 1. Structured deliberation. President Kennedy established the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, EXCOM, to systematically analyze options. 2. Consideration of multiple perspectives. EXCOM included diverse viewpoints, from hawks advocating military action to doves preferring diplomatic solutions. 3. Creative option generation. The eventual solution, a public deal to remove missiles from Cuba coupled with a secret deal to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey, emerged from creative problem-solving. 4. Ethical considerations. Decisions were made with an acute awareness of the potential for global nuclear war. Climate change policy. Developing effective climate change policies involves extraordinarily complex decision-making. 1. Long-time horizons. Decisions must consider impacts decades or centuries into the future. 2. Deep uncertainty. While the general trend of global warming is clear, specific local impacts and tipping points are highly uncertain. 3. Global coordination. Effective action requires coordinating decisions across nations with diverse interests. 4. Ethical dimensions. Policies must grapple with issues of intergenerational justice and global equity. Approaches like robust decision-making and scenario planning have been crucial in developing adaptive climate strategies in the face of these challenges. AlphaGo's Game 37. In the 2016 match between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, Move 37 in Game 2 represented a paradigm shift in our understanding of artificial intelligence and decision-making. 1. Counterintuitive brilliance. The move, which no human expert would have played, demonstrated AI's capacity for creative, non-human approaches to problem-solving. 2. Balancing exploration and exploitation. AlphaGo's decision-making process balanced exploiting known strategies with exploring novel approaches. 3. Learning from diverse perspectives. AlphaGo's training, which included learning from human games and self-play, demonstrated the power of integrating diverse sources of knowledge. This case illustrates how advanced decision-making systems can challenge our assumptions and open new possibilities in problem-solving. Cultivating wisdom in decision-making. As we conclude, it's important to recognize that mastering decision-making is not just about applying techniques or frameworks. It's about cultivating wisdom, the capacity to make sound judgments in the face of complexity, uncertainty, and competing values. Key aspects of wise decision-making include 1. Intellectual humility, recognizing the limits of our knowledge and being open to new information and perspectives. 2. Emotional intelligence, understanding and managing our own emotions and those of others involved in the decision. 3. Systems thinking, seeing the broader context and long-term implications of our decisions. 4. Moral imagination, the ability to envision and critically evaluate the ethical implications of our choices. 5. Adaptive expertise, developing the capacity to apply our knowledge flexibly in novel situations. Cultivating these qualities is a lifelong journey, one that requires ongoing reflection, learning, and a willingness to grapple with complexity and ambiguity. As you move forward, challenge yourself to apply these advanced decision-making approaches to both personal and professional decisions. Seek out opportunities to make decisions in diverse contexts, reflecting on your process and outcomes. Remember that every decision, no matter how small, is an opportunity to hone your skills and deepen your wisdom. In our final chapter, we'll explore how to integrate all the critical thinking skills we've developed, from logical analysis to perspective-taking to decision-making, into a cohesive approach to navigating life's challenges. We'll consider how to cultivate a lifestyle of critical thinking and continuous learning. Are you ready to bring together all you've learned and step into a new level of cognitive mastery? Let's embark on the final stage of our journey. Chapter 9: Integrating Critical Thinking into Your Life. As we reach the summit of our journey through the landscape of critical thinking, we find ourselves not at an end, but at a new beginning. The skills and insights we've gathered along the way are not mere academic exercises, but powerful tools for navigating the complexities of modern life. In this final chapter, we'll explore how to weave the threads of critical thinking into the very fabric of our daily existence, transforming not just how we think, but how we live. The tapestry of critical thinking. Throughout this book, we've explored various aspects of critical thinking. 1. Understanding our own thought patterns and biases. 2. The foundations of logical reasoning and evidence-based thinking. 3. Navigating the maze of cognitive biases. 4. Advanced problem-solving techniques. 5. Analyzing arguments and information. 6. Engaging with diverse perspectives. 7. Mastering the art of decision-making. Each of these elements is valuable in its own right, but their true power emerges when they are integrated into a cohesive whole. Like the master weaver who combines individual threads into a tapestry of great beauty and complexity, the skilled critical thinker weaves these various skills and insights into a rich, nuanced understanding of the world. The critical thinking lifestyle. Integrating critical thinking into your life is not about constantly engaging in formal analysis or structured decision-making processes. Rather, it's about cultivating a mindset and set of habits that naturally incorporate critical thinking into your everyday experiences. Cultivating intellectual curiosity. At the heart of the critical thinking lifestyle is a deep, abiding curiosity about the world. This curiosity drives us to 1. Ask probing questions about the information we encounter. 2. Seek out diverse perspectives on issues. 3. Explore the underlying causes and broader implications of events and ideas. Consider the approach of the polymathic genius Leonardo da Vinci, whose notebooks reveal an insatiable curiosity about everything from the flight of birds to the flow of water. This curiosity led him to insights that were centuries ahead of his time. To cultivate this kind of curiosity, develop a habit of asking why and how about the world around you. Keep a curiosity journal, noting questions that arise in your daily life. Set aside time for regular exploration of new ideas and fields of knowledge. Embracing intellectual humility. Critical thinking requires a delicate balance of confidence and humility. We must have the confidence to question established ideas and put forth our own thoughts, but also the humility to recognize the limits of our knowledge and the possibility that we may be wrong. The philosopher Bertrand Russell captured this beautifully. The fundamental cause of trouble in the world today is that the stupid are cocksure while the intelligent are full of doubt. Practices for cultivating intellectual humility include regularly challenging your own beliefs and seeking out contradictory evidence. Practicing phrases like, I may be wrong, but, or, based on what I currently know. Seeking feedback and criticism from others, and genuinely considering their input. Developing metacognitive awareness. Metacognition, thinking about our own thinking, is a crucial skill for the critical thinker. It involves 1. Monitoring our thought processes. 2. Recognizing when we're falling into cognitive biases or logical fallacies. 3. Adjusting our thinking strategies based on the demands of the situation. Techniques for enhancing metacognitive awareness include mindfulness meditation, which can increase our awareness of our thoughts. Keeping a thinking journal, reflecting on how you approached problems or decisions. Regular self-assessments of your thinking processes and outcomes. Creating a personal epistemology. As we navigate an increasingly complex information landscape, it's crucial to develop a robust personal epistemology, a framework for how we know what we know. This involves 1. Understanding different types of knowledge claims and their validity. 2. Developing criteria for evaluating sources of information. 3. Recognizing the role of expertise while maintaining healthy skepticism. Your personal epistemology might include principles like prioritizing peer-reviewed scientific research over anecdotal evidence. Seeking out primary sources where possible. Considering the potential biases and motivations of information sources. Engaging in continuous learning. The critical thinking lifestyle is one of lifelong learning. This doesn't necessarily mean formal education, but rather a commitment to continuously expanding and refining our understanding of the world. Strategies for continuous learning include setting aside regular time for reading and reflection. Engaging with diverse media, including books, podcasts, documentaries, and online courses. Participating in intellectual discussions and debates, both online and in person. Consider the approach of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, who advocates for building a latticework of mental models from various disciplines. This interdisciplinary approach allows for richer, more nuanced understanding and problem solving. Applying critical thinking in various life domains. Let's explore how integrated critical thinking can be applied in different areas of life. Personal relationships. In our personal relationships, critical thinking can help us communicate more effectively by understanding different perspectives. Resolve conflicts by analyzing root causes and generating creative solutions. Make important relationship decisions by carefully weighing pros and cons. For example, when facing a relationship conflict, you might 1. Use perspective taking to understand your partner's viewpoint. 2. Analyze your own biases and emotional reactions. 3. Generate multiple possible solutions. 4. Evaluate these solutions based on their likely outcomes and alignment with your values. Professional life. In our careers, critical thinking is essential for problem solving and innovation, strategic decision making, effective communication and persuasion. Consider how a manager might approach a complex project. 1. Use systems thinking to understand the project's place in the broader organizational context. 2. Apply scenario planning to prepare for various potential outcomes. 3. Use decision trees to map out key decision points and their potential consequences. 4. Engage diverse perspectives from team members to generate innovative solutions. Civic engagement. As citizens in a democracy, critical thinking is crucial for evaluating political claims and policy proposals, making informed voting decisions, engaging in constructive public discourse. When considering a new policy proposal, you might 1. Seek out diverse perspectives on the issue, including those you disagree with. 2. Analyze the evidence supporting different positions, considering the credibility of sources. 3. Consider the potential long-term and systemic effects of the policy. 4. Use ethical frameworks to evaluate the moral implications of different options. Personal development. In our journey of personal growth, critical thinking can guide us in setting meaningful goals aligned with our values, developing self-awareness and emotional intelligence, making important life decisions. For instance, when considering a major life change like a career switch, you might 1. Use multi-criteria decision analysis to weigh different factors, e.g., financial security, personal fulfillment, work-life balance. 2. Apply scenario planning to envision different possible futures. 3. Conduct a thorough self-analysis to understand your own motivations and biases. 4. Seek out diverse perspectives, including those who have made similar transitions. Overcoming challenges to critical thinking. Integrating critical thinking into our lives is not without its challenges. Let's consider some common obstacles and strategies for overcoming them. Information overload. In our digital age, we're bombarded with more information than we can possibly process. This can lead to decision paralysis or a tendency to rely on simplistic heuristics. Strategies for managing information overload include developing strong information filtering skills, including the ability to quickly assess the credibility and relevance of sources. Using tools like RSS feeds and curated newsletters to manage information flow. Practicing regular digital detoxes to allow time for deep thinking and reflection. Emotional and social pressures. Our thinking is profoundly influenced by our emotions and social context. Strong emotions can override rational analysis, while social pressures can lead to groupthink. To counter these pressures, practice emotional regulation techniques, such as mindfulness or cognitive reframing. Cultivate relationships with people who challenge your thinking. Create personal, cooling-off periods before making important decisions when emotions are high. Time constraints. In our fast-paced world, we often feel we don't have time for deep, critical thinking. However, the time invested in critical thinking often pays off in better decisions and outcomes. To make time for critical thinking, build regular reflection time into your schedule. Practice the art of slow thinking, deliberately slowing down your thought process for important decisions. Use techniques like the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize tasks and ensure important thinking time isn't crowded out by urgent but less important activities. Cognitive biases and lazy thinking. Even as we become more aware of cognitive biases, we're still susceptible to them. Moreover, our brains are wired to conserve energy, often defaulting to lazy, heuristic-based thinking. To combat these tendencies, regularly review and reflect on common cognitive biases. Create personal checklists for important decisions to ensure you're engaging in thorough, critical thinking. Seek out red teams or devil's advocates to challenge your thinking. The ethical imperative of critical thinking. As we conclude our journey, it's crucial to recognize that critical thinking is not just a personal tool for better decision-making, it's an ethical imperative in our complex, interconnected world. In an era of climate change, global pandemics, and rapid technological advancement, the quality of our collective thinking and decision-making has profound implications for the future of humanity and our planet. By cultivating our critical thinking skills and helping others to do the same, we contribute to a more rational, thoughtful, and ultimately more hopeful society. Moreover, in a time of increasing polarization and misinformation, critical thinking serves as a bulwark against extremism and a bridge for understanding across divides. It allows us to engage with different perspectives in good faith, to find common ground where possible, and to disagree respectfully where necessary. Conclusion: the journey continues. As we close this book, remember that mastering critical thinking is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. Each day presents new opportunities to apply and refine your critical thinking skills, challenge your assumptions, and deepen your understanding of the world. The path of the critical thinker is not always easy. It requires us to embrace uncertainty, to grapple with complexity, and to continually question our own beliefs. But it is a path that leads to greater clarity, deeper understanding, and more effective action in the world. As you move forward, I encourage you to 1. Regularly reflect on your thinking processes and seek to improve them. 2. Engage with others in thoughtful, critical discussions. 3. Apply critical thinking skills to important personal and societal issues. 4. Share your knowledge and help others develop their critical thinking abilities. Remember, every time you pause to question an assumption, consider an alternative perspective or dig deeper into an issue, you're not just improving your own thinking, you're contributing to a more thoughtful, rational world. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the landscape of critical thinking. May your path forward be one of continuous growth, deep insight, and a positive impact on the world around you. The adventure of critical thinking has only just begun. Chapter 10: Forging Mental Resilience. As we approach the zenith of our journey through the realm of critical thinking, we arrive at a summit that offers not just a panoramic view of the skills we've acquired, but a vantage point from which to face life's myriad challenges. In this final chapter, we'll explore how the critical thinking tools we've honed can be forged into a shield and sword of mental resilience, equipping us to not just weather the storms of life but to thrive amidst them. The nexus of critical thinking and mental resilience. Mental resilience, the ability to adapt to stress and adversity and bounce back from hardship, might at first glance seem distinct from critical thinking. However, they are intimately connected, each reinforcing and enhancing the other. Critical thinking as a foundation for resilience. The skills of critical thinking provide a robust foundation for mental resilience. 1. Analytical skills allow us to break down complex problems, making them less overwhelming. 2. Logical reasoning helps us maintain perspective and avoid catastrophic thinking. 3. Evidence evaluation enables us to distinguish between real and perceived threats. 4. Metacognition allows us to recognize and regulate our thought patterns. Consider the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who taught that it is not events themselves that distress us, but our judgments about them. This principle, echoed in modern cognitive behavioral therapy, illustrates how critical thinking can be a powerful tool for emotional regulation and resilience. Resilience enhancing critical thinking. Conversely, mental resilience enhances our capacity for critical thinking. 1. Emotional regulation allows for clearer thinking in stressful situations. 2. Adaptability enhances our ability to consider alternative perspectives and solutions. 3. Perseverance enables us to grapple with complex problems over extended periods. 4. Growth mindset encourages continuous learning and improvement in our thinking skills. Building cognitive flexibility. At the heart of both critical thinking and mental resilience lies cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt our thinking in response to changing situations and information. Embracing uncertainty. In our quest for understanding, we often seek certainty. However, true cognitive flexibility requires us to become comfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity. Strategies for embracing uncertainty include: 1. Probabilistic thinking. Instead of seeking absolute answers, think in terms of probabilities and ranges of possibilities. 2. Holding multiple hypotheses. Cultivate the ability to entertain several, sometimes contradictory, explanations simultaneously. 3. Regular belief updating. Actively seek information that might challenge your current beliefs and be willing to revise them. Consider the approach of renowned physicist Richard Feynman, who said, "I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong." This attitude allowed him to make groundbreaking discoveries by remaining open to new possibilities. Cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing, the ability to look at situations from different perspectives, is a powerful tool for both critical thinking and resilience. Techniques for developing this skill include: 1. The what-if game. Regularly challenge yourself to imagine how situations might be different if key factors were changed. 2. Perspective-taking exercises. Practice viewing situations from the viewpoints of different stakeholders. 3. Contrarian thinking. Deliberately argue against your own initial judgments to uncover new insights. Emotional intelligence and critical thinking. While we've focused primarily on cognitive skills, emotional intelligence is crucial for both effective critical thinking and mental resilience. Recognizing emotional influences. Our emotions profoundly influence our thinking, often in ways we don't recognize. Developing the ability to identify and understand our emotions is crucial for clear thinking and resilience. Practices for enhancing emotional awareness include: 1. Emotional labeling. Develop a rich emotional vocabulary to precisely identify your feelings. 2. Body scanning. Regularly check in with your physical sensations, which often provide clues to emotional states. 3. Mood tracking. Keep a journal of your emotional states and the situations that trigger them. Emotional regulation strategies. Once we're aware of our emotions, we can develop strategies to regulate them, allowing for clearer thinking and greater resilience. Key strategies include: 1. Cognitive reappraisal. Changing how we think about a situation to change how we feel about it. 2. Mindfulness practices. Developing the ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting to them. 3. Stress inoculation. Gradually exposing ourselves to stressors in a controlled way to build resilience. Developing a growth mindset. A growth mindset, the belief that our abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work, is crucial for both ongoing development of critical thinking skills and building resilience. Embracing challenges. Instead of avoiding difficulties, those with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities for growth. Strategies for embracing challenges include: 1. Reframing failures. View setbacks as learning opportunities rather than personal deficiencies. 2. Setting learning goals. Focus on what you can learn from situations rather than just on performance outcomes. 3. Seeking feedback. Actively ask for constructive criticism to identify areas for improvement. Cultivating grit. Grit, the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals, is a key component of both critical thinking development and mental resilience. To cultivate grit: 1. Identify your purpose. Connect your efforts to a larger sense of meaning or purpose. 2. Practice deliberate practice. Engage in focused, systematic efforts to improve specific aspects of your performance. 3. Develop a support network. Surround yourself with people who encourage and challenge you. Practical exercises for building mental resilience. Let's explore some practical exercises that integrate critical thinking skills with resilience building. The pre-mortem technique. Developed by psychologist Gary Klein, the pre-mortem involves imagining that a project or decision has failed and then working backward to determine what potentially could lead to the failure. This exercise: 1. Helps identify potential pitfalls that optimism bias might cause us to overlook. 2. Builds resilience by mentally preparing for setbacks. 3. Enhances critical thinking by encouraging thorough analysis and creative problem solving. The Stoic practice of negative visualization. This ancient Stoic practice involves regularly imagining losing the things we value: our possessions, our jobs, our relationships. Benefits include: 1. Increasing gratitude for what we have. 2. Building emotional resilience by reducing the shock of actual losses. 3. Enhancing critical thinking by challenging our assumptions about what we need to be happy. The decision journal. Keeping a decision journal involves recording the thought process behind significant decisions, including: 1. The situation or problem. 2. The options considered. 3. The expected outcomes. 4. The decision made and the rationale behind it. Periodically reviewing this journal: 1. Improves decision-making by allowing you to learn from past decisions. 2. Builds resilience by demonstrating your ability to handle difficult choices. 3. Enhances critical thinking by encouraging systematic analysis of your thought processes. Case studies in critical thinking and resilience. Let's examine some real-world examples of how critical thinking and mental resilience intersect. Nelson Mandela's prison years. During his 27 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela demonstrated extraordinary mental resilience and critical thinking. 1. Cognitive reframing. He reframed his imprisonment as an opportunity for personal growth and strategic planning. 2. Emotional intelligence. He developed deep empathy for his captors, which later informed his approach to reconciliation. 3. Long-term thinking. He maintained focus on the larger goal of ending apartheid, resisting short-term compromises. Malala Yousafzai's response to adversity. After surviving an assassination attempt by the Taliban, Malala Yousafzai demonstrated remarkable resilience and critical thinking. 1. Purpose-driven resilience. She channeled her experience into a global campaign for girls' education. 2. Perspective-taking. She sought to understand the motivations of her attackers, advocating for education as a solution to extremism. 3. The strategic thinking. She leveraged international attention to amplify her message and create tangible change. The ethical dimension of mental resilience. As we cultivate mental resilience, it's crucial to consider its ethical implications. 1. Resilience versus acceptance. While resilience is valuable, we must be careful not to use it as an excuse for accepting unethical or unjust situations. 2. Individual versus collective resilience. We should strive to build not just personal resilience, but also the resilience of our communities and societies. 3. Resilience and compassion. True resilience should enhance our capacity for empathy and compassion, not diminish it. Conclusion: the resilient critical thinker. As we conclude our journey through the landscape of critical thinking and mental resilience, we find ourselves not at an end, but at a new beginning. The skills and mindsets we've explored are not static achievements, but dynamic capabilities that require ongoing cultivation and refinement. The integration of critical thinking and mental resilience equips us not just to survive in an increasingly complex and uncertain world, but to thrive and make meaningful contributions. It allows us to 1. Face challenges with confidence and clarity. 2. Adapt to changing circumstances without losing our core values. 3. Contribute to solving complex societal problems. 4. Lead and inspire others through our example of thoughtful, resilient engagement with life's challenges. As you move forward from this point, remember that every challenge you face is an opportunity to apply and refine your critical thinking skills and to build greater mental resilience. Every setback is a chance to practice cognitive reframing, every difficult decision an opportunity to apply systematic analysis, every emotional storm a chance to practice self-awareness and regulation. The path of the resilient critical thinker is not an easy one. It requires constant vigilance against our cognitive biases, regular stretching of our mental muscles, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths and challenging situations. But it is a path that leads to greater clarity, deeper understanding, more effective action, and ultimately, a more fulfilling life. As you continue on this path, I encourage you to 1. Regularly reflect on your thinking processes and emotional responses. 2. Seek out challenges that stretch your cognitive and emotional capabilities. 3. Share your journey with others, as teaching is one of the most powerful ways to reinforce learning. 4. Stay curious, always being open to new ideas and perspectives. 5. Practice compassion, for yourself and others, recognizing that we're all on a journey of growth and learning. Thank you for accompanying me on this exploration of critical thinking and mental resilience. May your future be filled with challenging problems, paradigm-shifting insights, resilient responses to setbacks, and the deep satisfaction that comes from living a life of thoughtful, meaningful engagement with the world. Remember, the greatest adventures in critical thinking and resilience building lie not in the pages of this book, but in the life that awaits you beyond it. Embrace the challenge, enjoy the journey, and may your thoughts be ever critical and your spirit ever resilient.